Hi there, this is SR Coder, and in this tutorial we're going to continue on from the player controller, the 2D player controller, to finish off a 2D platform game, a really simple one. So we're just going to run through a few of the things about Unity Editor and write some code to be able to win and be able to lose and have the camera follow and stuff. So yeah, we'll just get straight to it. So you should have done the tutorial previously on the character controller. If not, you're going to probably have to go back and get that. The character controller is going to be important for this because obviously the player is going to have to move around, and this is one of the easiest ways to do it. So we've got the character controller up and running. It now just moves around and jumps, and we're going to create the tile map for us to run around on. So in the 3D view, in the hierarchy over here, we're just going to right click to create a new object, and we're going to go to 2D object and say tile map. And we're going to keep it really simple. So we've got this really simple tile map in here. So the tile map has got the tile map and the tile map renderer. We're going to have to add the tile map collider as well. So that you'll see tile map collider 2D. Just add this in, and then that'll just deal with all of the collisions. And all we're going to do is create some platforms. So if we see this tile map here, to work out what's going on with the tile map, we need to go up to Window and go to 2D, and then Tile Palette. The tile palette by default, I'm just going to dock my tile palette. Oh, I don't know, maybe there. So this tile palette allows me to create some new tiles. Actually, I'm not going to dock it over here. So they first of all need to create one. So it's called new palette. So I'm just going to leave it as that, or maybe call it my palette, my tile palette. And just click create. I'm going to keep it really simple. I'm going to put it inside the sprites folder, and yeah, so my tile palette is now inside the sprites folder. You'll see it right here. There's currently no sprites in the tile palette, so it's easy as dragging and dropping one in. So in theory you could drag as many as you want. This is the square, and it's going to create an asset from that, and just click save. So this is just going to be this white tile map sprite that we've got here, and it's going to kind of get in the way of the player, but it should be alright. We'll just keep going with it. So with the tile map open, what you can do, and I will dock it somewhere else, maybe over here. So with this tile map open, what you can do is you can literally, with this tool selected, you can literally just paint the paint one, select a tool, and you can just paint on, and that will create the tiles for you. And you just move around with the middle mouse, so you can create a really simple level that you can move around on just now. With the tile map collider, this all should just work. So if I hit play, you'll see that the player should drop to the tiles, and you should be able to move, and you should be able to jump as well. So I did notice that the jumping is actually a bit glitchy, and it's probably just something to do with Bolt. It's kind of like booting up as it does it. If it does get worse, we may have to have a little look at improving that in a later video, but it should work reasonably well for now. So the tile map, you can see the main problem with this right now is that the character doesn't follow the camera doesn't follow the character, so we're just going to fix that. So the camera here is if I go back to inspector again, this camera has a set position at like -10 on the Z, and it's orthographic. It's all set up for fully TD. What we can do to make our lives significantly easier, and we could get really complicated and use a more complex system, but we'll just keep it really simple. If you add another component to it, and you call it the position constraint. So this position constraint, the way it works is when you activate it and you give it a source, it will try and match the position based on the weight here. So if it's got a weight of 1, it's going to just exactly match the position of the object that is its source once it's activated. So it's not currently active, as you can see. So the source I want for this main camera to follow is the player, so I'm just going to drag player onto this. Oops, need to hit plus first to give it a slot. So yeah, drag player onto the source, and then if we're happy with the position of the player relative to the camera, I mean, we could move the camera right or left, or move the player right or left. Right now they currently match exactly, but as soon as I click activate, then what's going to happen is the camera is going to exactly follow the player, because the position constraint will match its current offset with the movement of the player. So you can see now that we can move right and left, and the camera does actually follow. To stop it from sticking on the sides here, which is a really interesting thing, I found the easiest thing to do is to create, I may as well do it inside of, I'm not going to do it in sprites, I'll do it in scripts because why not, but we create a material, a physics material for these objects. So this physics material 2D, and we'll call this Slippy, and we'll set this friction to 0 because we're actually controlling the velocity of it by encode, so we don't need it to use any of the grip or anything, and so gravity affecting it downwards, if there's no friction at all, it'll just slide straight off. So I'm going to save that, go back to the player here, and you'll see that there's a physics material slot for the capsule collider. I'm just going to drag Slippy onto there. We could, in theory, also change the tile map as well, so the material here, the physics material 2D, will change that to Slippy as well. It shouldn't affect it too much because it's going to be a pretty simple game. So you'll see now that hitting play, when we play this, we should be able to move right and left, and when we jump onto the side, it'll just slip straight off. So that brings me to the next problem, where we don't actually die. So there's a couple of ways that we can do this. What we could do is we could write a simple script for the player to die when they go below a certain value, and that's probably as easy as any. I mean, you could put a massive collider at the bottom and check for the collisions with it. I think it's probably easier to just do a simple thing where we die below a certain value. So we need to work out what that value should be. So if I grab the player here and let's zoom in a bit, we have to make sure that we level design correctly as well. So if we see the position change here, so when the Y value gets to maybe -10, something like that, we want to definitely say we've fallen. So just reset that to 0 again. So we know that we want the Y value, the position, to be if it's -10, then we want to restart the level, or if we're going to do checkpoints, we want to go to the next checkpoint. So since we're using Bolt, we'll just get straight to making a new Bolt script on him. So we click on the player, and we'll go down to this add component, and from Bolt menu just choose Flow Machine. I'm going to click a new one here, and just inside my scripts folder, we're going to call this die below, and it's just going to restart the level when we die. So we'll just click on edit graph, and let's bring this across because it's been on my other window. Bring it across here. So we're going to get rid of the start and go full screen so we can see what we're doing. So the what we need is we've got the value already, so let's make it an object value. So I had made this in practice, so we'll just do it again. So we had a die below value, so die below value, and this is going to be a floating point number, and we decided on -10, so we need this value in case we want to change this. We use this variable so we can change it inside the inspector. I'll show you that in a second, but we basically want to do an if statement to check every single frame if the player's value is below -10, then we want to restart the game. So if I right click in a space here, we're going to find the player's position from the player transform there, and then I'll use this get position. I only want the Y position, so if I drop it out here and I say if I go to get Y, so yeah, vector 3 and then get Y, that allows me to just get the Y value. So the number coming out here will be the player's Y position, and we want to just do a branch here. So if I just do branch, This will be basically an if statement. So we'll pop, oh yeah, we need to do the comparison first before we do the branch. So the comparison, this value, we want to do this less than or equal to. So this less than or equal to, move that one across, and we want to plug in this value, this die below value in here. So we'll just pop it in to there. So we dragged it out from here and popped it in here. So now we get a true or a false. So we'll pop this in. Yeah, so in the true branch here, we want to basically load the scene again. So if you type in scene for now, this is if you go to the scene manager, we should be able to do load scene. So you can load scene from the particular build index, and we're going to assume that the scene that you're on is build index 0, and obviously if we leave this at 0, we could be a bit, it might be the wrong one, so we should be sure that it is the correct one. But in theory, the way this works is that this will just load the scene at build index 0. So if we save this and go to the build settings, file and build settings, just drag my build settings over, you should see that there's no scenes in at all. So I'm going to add this open scene. So the sample scene is the one, and you can see the number that we have over here is the build index of the scene that we're currently in, which is 0. So when we load scene 0, we're going to load this one. We could get more complicated and find the current active scene and pass that in, and we probably should when we extend this, but we'll leave it for now and maybe improve this later. So everything is saved, and in theory I'm going to unfull screen this and close the flow graph for now, and in theory when I when I fall off the map, so I'm playing it now, when I fall off the map and my position goes below -10, so I'm going to go like this right now, I'm going to fall off, the whole thing should reload and will appear back at the front again, back in the start position. So let's add some bad guys as well. So I'm going to just go into the sprites here, and I'm going to create myself a new sprite. So if I go down to sprites, I'm going to make a triangle. So the triangle is going to be the bad guy, and I'm going to drag one out onto the scene, and I'm just going to, now it's on the scene, this triangle, we'll call it Spike, and I'm going to change its color in the sprite renderer so that it's red, because everything that kills you should be red. Right, so we need a script on this as well to check that it hits the player. In theory, the player could do that as well, and the player could check that it's hit that, but it's better to keep things separate so that this spike is in charge of itself and only itself. So each one of the spikes should be able to kill the player. So we're just going to write that script for that, so it's not as difficult as it seems. So again, we're just going to go to Bolt Flow Machine and create a new flow machine. I'm going to put them in scripts to keep it organized, and I'm going to call it kill player. That's what it's going to do. And we'll open up that graph and pop it on this side again, and pop it up to full screen. We'll get started writing that. So what we want is, this gives me a chance to introduce some of these new methods. So I'm going to actually get rid of start and update right now, and I'm going to click the on trigger enter. So this on trigger enter method, so on trigger enter 2D, obviously the 2D one, this is an event that gets fired when something enters a trigger. So right now my collider is not a trigger, so I'm going to unfull screen, show the scene, and make sure that this is not a collider under, where's the collider? Oh, we need to add one, so we'll add from the physics 2D, we're going to add just a standard box collider. This standard box collider, we're going to make sure we tick is trigger, and this will, because that's there, it will fire that on trigger enter. So remember that this flow graph is on this object, So it will fire this on trigger enter 2D when anything hits it. So what we need to do is we'll get this collider information. If I go full screen, we'll see a bit more about it. So we'll see some info over here. It says so the collider, the other collider involved in the collision. So we need to check this other collider to see if it's got a tag of player. Checking it by tag is the easiest way of doing it. If I unfull screen, we'll go back and ensure that the player is given the player tag. So under the scene, I've got the player selected. You'll see over here underneath the name of the game object, there's a tag, and because player is so common, it's already included as a default value inside of Unity. So we'll tag this as player, that way we can check that it's the player really easily by checking this tag, and it's a nice fast way of doing it. So back to the spike and back to the flow graph for the spike. So we're going to get this collider out and just find the tag of that. So if we go to this collider 2D, if I start typing in tag, you'll see that there's some options. So game object get tag will be fine. So this gets the tag of the object that we pass into it. The tag we're going to compare to, so if we go over, drop one out here, so we could do a string compare, but it's probably easier just to do this logic compare. So we'll just do this equal. And we're going to compare it to another string, so we'll just choose this string literal, and then we can type the value in that we want. So we're comparing it to player. Make sure that's spelled correctly. It's a capital P, and that's the actual string for the tag that we need. So in theory, if this will return true or false, so we need a branch here, and we're going to plug in that to there, so that once we fire this on trigger enter, we make sure we go to that branch. This branch is going to be started. We want to, if it's true, we want to restart the game like we did last time, and if it's false, we want to basically do nothing. So it means it's hit something, but it's not hit the it's not the player that's hit it. So if I drop this one out, we want to do what we did the last time. So if we type in scene again, so we should be able to get the scene manager again. So we'll just do scene manager, and I believe it was load scene with a scene build index, and we left this value at 0. So it'll load scene 0. So now I'm just going to save the scene, hit play, and just test this, make sure that it works. So in theory now, when we hit the spiky thing, so when player drops to the bottom, it's a spiky thing, and the level reloads. It doesn't exactly happen instantaneous, but it does actually work. So yeah, there we go, we've got a bad guy. And then in the next thing we need to do is to get the something that makes us win. So to win, what I'll do is I'll just under the spike, I'm just going to move the spike, oops, I'm in scene view now. I'll just move the spike out of the way, and I'm going to create a sprite that we're going to have that will be the win sprite. So I'm going to create again from the sprites menu, and this time I think a diamond, sure, a diamond, why not? A diamond will make us win. So dragging this out onto the scene, I'm just going to pop it here, and I'll make it kind of like a yellowy gold color, so it looks like it's a good thing. And we're going to write a script for this one to make us win. And when we win, I mean, all we're going to do is we're going to jump to the next scene, and then we're probably going to have to change the scripts in the other ones so that they know which scene they're on. Okay, so let's go straight to the bolt again. So if we go to bolt, then we go to flow machine, and again we're going to click a new one, and inside of scripts we're going to call this win trigger. And obviously we'll need, for this diamond, we're going to need the collider again, so I'll not do what I did last time, and I'll remember to put it in. So physics 2D, and we're going to choose box collider 2D, and we're going to make sure that it's a trigger, so that we're ready to go. So now if we edit this graph, we should be able to kind of work out what it is we're going to do. So again, we want to get rid of these. We want to do this on trigger enter, so we did it the last time, so it's pretty much exactly the same thing. So we want this on trigger enter 2D, and this on trigger enter takes the collider. We're going to check that that collider is the, so if I start typing in tag, so we're going to check the tag, so game object get tag. If that tag, if we drop it out here, we're going to use the logic to see if it's equal to something, and the equal to something that it's going to be is just a string literal, which is player. So we're checking that the thing that touches it has a tag of player, and we're going to use the branch again. So we've got this branch, so we be sure that it is the player. If it is the player, what we want to do is exactly what we did last time. If I start typing in scene, we've got scene manager again, and this time we're going to load scene from build index, and this is where we start to think a bit more about how we're going to work out what the current scene is, so that we can add one on to it, and then we'll be able to use what we've learned to change the other scripts so that they work on the actual scene that you're currently on when we reload. So we're going to start by just building this up from the scene manager. So I'm going to click on add unit and then just type in scene manager. When I get the scene manager, I want to be able to use this get active scene, which makes sense. So I want the active scene, but you'll see that the output for this is a scene. It's not an actual integer number, so we need the integer number. So I'm just going to drop that out, and you'll see that you have the scene option, and we want to get the build index of this current scene. So move that out the way. So we've got this. So the get build index will give us the number. And if we plug this straight in, it would reload the current scene, which is awesome for the other scripts, and we're going to remember to add this in a second, but we want to add one onto it. So since we have that, we can just do add, and then it already puts a value of 1 in here, and then we can just hook that up. So this will take the current active scene, get its index, add one to it, and that's the scene that will get loaded. And you don't need to create these hooks, because this will just get fired when the scene manager wants that information. It will fire all these other things rather than have to do anything weird. So saving this, and drop out of full screen and hit play to test it. So in theory now it should load the next scene. Well, at least it'll try to load the next scene. If you look down in the console here, you'll see the biggest problem. So we go like this, and it says scene with build index 1 could not be loaded because it hasn't been added to the build settings. So we know it worked. It tried to load something that was scene number 1, but it doesn't actually exist. So I have the basics of the scene right here. So it's currently called sample scene, and what I'm going to do is from the scenes, I'm going to click on sample scene. I'm going to Control D to duplicate. So this will make another one that will be an exact clone of this called sample scene 1. So I'm going to call this level 2, and I'm going to rename sample scene to level 1, and click reload. So the level 1 is this one, and if I double click level 2, you'll see that you can see what level you're on up here, and so I can see a difference. What I should probably do is make some changes. So in level 2, I'm going to put that there, and put that one here. So yeah, level 2 is slightly harder than level 1. So if I do a level 1, it's all I need to do is get to here. So saving these, and just quickly test this so that it still works. So in theory, this is level 1, and you can get to the trigger. Oh, forgot to add them. Yeah. So file, build settings, and I've already got level 1 in, but I forgot to put level 2. So you can drag and drop them straight in like this, straight from the scenes, and just close that. So hit play again. Let's give this a quick test. So we shouldn't have any console messages this time round. We should be able to just go straight into this, and it loads level 2, and then level 2, obviously I have to jump over the spike and go to there, and there's nothing, and it says build index who can be loaded. So you would want to have a final scene that doesn't have this stuff on it, that has a big win message or something like that, so that when you've got when you do make it to the win of the last level, it just congratulates you or something like that would be the easiest thing to do. And the last thing we should do before we call this a really simple game is we should make some changes to this the player movement, sorry, not the player movement, the die below graph and the kill ones, because when we did these before, if I edit the die below graph, you'll see that we automatically loaded scene with build index 0, but we might want to do that on the other levels too, and this will automatically load index 0. So if you remember from the last time, you type in scene manager, because we want to manage the scene, so scene manager, and from the scene manager we wanted to get the active scene, and we wanted to turn that active scene into an integer, so you do that from scene and then get build index. So just move these out of the way, and then that integer goes straight in here. So whatever scene you're currently working on or you're currently playing is the scene that will get loaded when you fall below that certain value that can be set inside the inspector. And the last one was the kill. So we put the kill on the spike, and again it was exactly the same situation. So we're going to add a unit, we're going to add the scene manager unit, and we're going to get the active scene, and because it's a scene and not an integer, we're going to go to scene and then get build index and just drop that into here. So this will again reload the current active scene. So in theory, this is pretty much a really simple game. You can get going with the actual level design, and you can play around with tile maps to make a cool level. You've got barriers or things that stop you, and you've got the win trigger that will load the last level, and make sure that the very last level is one that you don't have one of these on, because you want to just display a message saying you've won, or something like that. So yeah, hopefully that was fairly self-explanatory, and I hope you're getting used to using Bolt now. It's a great way to code, and yeah, good luck, and I hope you're enjoying the series.